Hi, so before I jump into this discussion, I'd just like to apologise for my nasally voice. I'm a little bit sick at the moment, but hopefully the audio doesn't come out too bad this time. Misang. While I don't have much to add to my previous thoughts on the death fags being put up by SIU, I do find the Purple Eye Brothers Observer interesting. It seems that the Purple Eye's special skill, Slow Eye, likely attempts to slow down the shin-soo in an enemy's circulatory system, restricting their movement. This activates in much the same way as reverse flow control techniques, except that Bam's fast skip move can forcibly stop people and the surrounding shin-soo for at least a couple seconds. Now I'm probably overthinking the mechanisms behind these abilities, but I wonder if the Purple Eye Observer could be designed to mirror more advanced reverse control techniques. This is honestly just a postulation for the future, especially as the workshop's inventions start to become more prominently used by rankers and the Zahad Empire. But because we know Bam copied Quaint's use of this ability, this might be a more common technique in the upper floors, perhaps? There's a number of dialogue segments in Kell's speech to break down here, so I'll go through each one by one. Firstly, she identifies the running theme of self-proclaimed gods among men, with Elpathion's consideration of Zahad's wrath. Her mocking tone really helps further characterize Kell's ironic disregard for authority and classes, as extending to even her admonishment of Zahad's rule. I've noticed in discussions for the last 3 or 4 chapters that people are forgetting that Kell is a floor ruler. That is a title presumably bestowed by the floor administrator and upheld by the Zahad Empire, so directly going against the class systems is one thing, sure. Completely disregarding the King of the Tower is another thing in its entirety. Secondly, Kell curiously comments that she survived from hell, and at first I interpreted this quite literally, but after a reread I believe this is more of a metaphorical hell. She goes on to immediately reveal that losing her passion for change, to lose the drive that makes her the infernal Kell, would be equal to death in her mind. That's why I'm theorizing that this hell she mentions could be a reference to her mistaken acceptance of the floor ruler role, and how that tied her down to the tower's organizational structure. This may have been hell for her, which would explain her disappearance from her position and her current disregard for the consequences of attacking the Royal Army forces. However, another explanation could be easily that this hell she talks about occurred before she met Yu Han-sung. Their meeting in the Ranker Wasteland was probably my favourite moment in this entire chapter for a number of reasons. Han-sung's words about fearing the loss of rage more than death was cleverly reflected in Kell's exact sentiments during the current events, highlighting that even though Kell is Yu Han-sung's master, they share a more mutually inspirational relationship than previously depicted. If not for Yu Han-sung, Kell might still be slaughtering rankers for fun. I'd also like to mention Kell's statements which asserted that those who are closest to being immortal usually are the most afraid of dying. This will definitely come back into play when Bam begins to face the 10 great family heads, and especially Hendo Locke Blood Matter. He is infamously known for cursing his children to short lives in exchange for his immortality, as he was not offered this gift from the floor administrator like the others. I fully expect that when we finally meet Blood Matter, he'll be characterized in an ugly, God-fearing light, which will cement Kell's observations. I can't express how much I enjoyed seeing SIU incorporate the tower positions into a fight between rankers. He has said in past blog posts that as the protagonists move up the tower, tower positions will become more vital in combat scenarios, so this feels like a nice payoff to those comments. 2 of the fodder take up wave controller and spearman positions, while Elpathion is weirdly the light bearer and Ari Sharon Bright is the fisherman. Of course, this would all be for nothing if SIU didn't showcase teamwork between these positions, but luckily he totally does. You can clearly see how Shakul is distracting and surrounding Kell with long-range spear attacks, while El Papillon is blocking Kell with lighthouses, and Ari Sharon is using this teamwork to pierce Kell's defenses. And speaking of Ari Sharon, we get a lot of information from her directly and through her fighting style, with the latter showcasing the Ari family's skill with needles. There's been no confirmation yet, but judging from the fairy naming sense for Ari Sharon's attacks, I get the feeling that Ari family members possess weightless, soft movement. This would not only fit with their family's distaste for physical conflicts, such as wars, but also with their use of needles. Despite the literal meaning of the weapon name, needles are rarely handled in a manner befitting them. They are not threaded like a needle, but rather swung around weightily. And unlike the Eri family, the Ari family don't train in shin-soo sword styles, so I think they specialize in light, piercing swordsmanship that is tailored to their swift ability to traverse a battlefield. I'm not sure if this will apply to every family member, since SIU stated in the blog post that they were generally adept with needles, but I have a slight suspicion it will be a semi-constant thematic characterization going forward. Every great family has some sort of quirk that defines them, so I wouldn't be surprised if this was it. Moving on to the current chapter, Yu Han-sung's Shin-soo control qualities are finally revealed after years of speculation. He possesses wave-like Shin-soo with a distinctly oceanic theme, which is not something we see all that often for some bizarre reason. You'd think in this manhwa especially, water-based skills would be more commonly utilized, but oh well I guess. Yu Han-sung pretty swiftly avoids Drac and Dorian Frog, showcasing that while he isn't technically a high ranker, he obviously is strong enough to be considered one. Cheon-hee-ha on the other hand is having none of this, using Sylphie to hard counter his raging rapids. What's surprising in this confrontation is how SAU characterizes Yu Han-sung in a positive light here, very much unlike Season 1. Instead of playing coy as usual, he's insistent on protecting the regulars, even joking about the torment he inflicted on them during the floor of tests. Really, ever since we learned of his more carefree, likeable nature back in the Hidden Floor arc, SU has made an effort to paint Yu Han-sung in a guardian-like role to Bam. He's no Jin-sang-ha, and the regulars are still quick to suspicion, but it's intriguing to watch the development of his character in the protagonist's corner. I've also noticed a theme in Jeon-ha's fighting style. If it wasn't obvious already, she heavily incorporates different devices and weapons to manipulate the airspace. Her floating spears named Sylphide is probably a reference to the mythological air spirits called Sylphs. For another manga example, look no further than Black Clover. In that series, Yuno acquires a wind spirit called Sylphie that enables him to enhance his wind magic capabilities. I believe the same naming sense can also be applied to Cheon-hee-ha, as she also uses a big ass fan to blow gusts of wind at Yu Han-sung. In defending against Cheon-ha's fans, SAU also adds a little more mystery to Yuri's green jelly bean like Shin-soo abilities. It is shown reinforcing Yu Han-sung's wave Shin-soo, leading me to believe that Yuri is manipulating some kind of permeable substance. This would explain why Karaka couldn't escape, despite his ability to literally shed his armor. If it is a permeable Shin-soo that acts in a similar fashion to Gu, that would be able to restrict Karaka's ability to fade away, and merge with Yu Han-sung's Shin-soo. If it is a permeable Shin-soo that acts in a similar fashion to Gu, that would be able to restrict Karaka's ability to fade away, and merge with Yu Han-sung's Shin-soo. SAU is really outdoing himself in coming up with new silly character designs that clearly scream fodder. From Redbeard's majestic locks to the reincarnation of Paracool, I've been loving how plainly obvious he's been getting with new regular fodder. I mean, he actually named a crew of D ranks Unisona and the others. Two of them were so fodderish, he didn't even bother giving them names. They got beaten a couple panels after their introduction, which was kind of hilarious and does confirm how little SAU gave a shit about them. But Bam's confrontation with these C and D rank regulars also demonstrates that ranks don't necessarily tell the whole story. As SAU did mention in his blog post, that C ranks are recruited often for other reasons than their base strength. This could be their family lineage and their recruitment connections, but it's nonetheless not all about their personal achievements. We know that ranks are decided largely based upon the floors a regular is climbed to, not their abstract measure of abilities, so the specific recruitment of certain regular ranks makes sense in this context. It explains why C and D rank regulars aren't all of the same caliber in this army. It's also a little unfair to the regulars, since they're fighting a bona fide monster. Bam is definitely a slow learner in some aspects of shin-soo control, largely because he didn't have the proper guidance early on in his life. However, it's undeniable that the D rank does not apply to his current abilities. Cheon Hee-ha and Yoo Han-sung both recognize this immediately, which exemplifies how differently high rankers assess the situation. That's been a recurring theme throughout this mini-war, as the regulars or rankers that went in headfirst without assessing the danger usually were the ones to bite the dust first. But Bam's orb control is becoming super interesting now, because it seems like there's almost a certain rank where it's expected that regulars will obtain this advanced technique, or at least something similar. Bam's orb is obviously quite unique to only a handful of tower inhabitants, but Edwan's teaching of Shin-soo tension and qualities showed there is different tiers to Shin-soo manipulation. The way Cheon Hee-ha phrased her internal thoughts makes me speculate that below C rank might be when characters are supposed to learn of their Shin-soo qualities. Rak noticeably picks up on Kell's ancient fire, but I'm not totally convinced that he is reflecting on his species. From reading others' comments, it would be totally plausible for SAU to play this off as a joke, because Kun is literally caged in ice. What better way to melt ice than to throw him in a ball of fire? Now, I'm not dismissing that this moment may lead to Rak seeking out Kell, but I just have a strange feeling it's going to be a joke until they actually meet under whatever circumstances. I've also got a funny idea about the potential Levy versus Rak fight, and how that might pan out. It's possible that Rak is so forward, so ignorant, that he doesn't hesitate to answer any of Levy's questions, essentially making him immune to the question mark curse. As I said in the last video, I would be content with Levy appearing randomly, only to be knocked back again and again with a growing, stupefied look on his face. This could be the perfect setup for not only a fun, ongoing joke, but also a possible clash where we see Rak dominate his opponent for once. Even though Rak is apparently hard to illustrate, SAU still doesn't give him enough love in terms of big combat moments, so I'd be pretty pleased if my assumptions turned out to be correct. Lastly, it appears I was right in thinking Jin Sang-ha would intercept Caliban's warship before they could reach the battlefield. I knew Caliban wouldn't show up just yet because Bam already has enough to deal with at the moment. That would be one too many powerful characters in one location. I kind of see this confrontation going in a similar way to Jin Sang-ha versus Mancini, where SAU treats us to a couple of panels here and there of them fighting, only to cut back to the current struggle. Judging from his fashion sense and haircut, I doubt he'd be the type to face people head on, but I don't believe he'll avoid confrontation altogether. I assume we'll also learn why Caliban is called the Human Collector and get a real read on his personality. Caliban and Shakul's diamond-shaped embroidery sewn across their clothing suggests that this is not a materialistic logo of the Ari family, like I previously suggested about Ari Sharon Bright's design. Unless somehow Shakul is an Ari family member, which I highly doubt, it's more likely a design choice that indicates a commanding role in the Royal Zahad forces. That being said, Caliban's light blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and fisherman position could also suggest a possible relationship with the Ari family too. I'm not totally shutting down the possible theory that Caliban may be an Ari just yet, but we'll need to see if he uses a needle next week. Okay, and with that, I think I got through everything I wanted to cover. Once again, sorry about the shoddy audio quality this time. I'm hoping by next video my voice will be back to normal, but we'll see, I guess. If you stayed through the whole video, thanks for watching and see you next time.